Serene, I think a big part of this for white people in the past and also right now in this moment in history that we're in is a fear of exposure, not just of ourselves, because there's a lot of shame in that, but our families, our communities, our churches, especially family members, even parents, grandparents. It can feel, I think, to white people like a big betrayal to call it out, either interpersonally or publicly. But if you don't, then where do you go to start an honest dialogue? So there's, big decisions to be made when somebody, decides to really get into deep dialogue and try to help, other white people in their environment learn and understand and go on a journey to understanding our history and systemic racism. So, I know you tell stories in your book about how your dad would get so upset about your grandfather telling racist jokes and or using the N word, and I feel like that is a scenario that plays out in white households across the country. And it's scary to break from your family or your friends. You don't know that the relationship will survive it. What advice can you give people who are grappling with that kind of situation?
I mean, it's one thing to think about how you do it in your own life in the moment, and it's another thing to think about how you write about it. Um, in writing this book, I'm very honest about it, but the people that I expose myself, and I feel entitled to expose myself at risk. But all the other people whose real harms I'm exposing are no longer alive,
Mhm.
and I had no intention in this book to in any way harm people who are living. And so I was very careful about that.
And was it the family supportive? Did it cause any friction? Did you speak to them before you wrote or published, or how did that work?
My larger extended family, I did not talk to about it, and they are politically all over the map. Um, but my immediate family, my father, my sisters, even my ex-husband who makes it into the book, as well as my daughter, I they all read the entire manuscript and were able to give me feedback. And I'm so blessed that I had the complete 100% support of my family and um, most importantly from my father, and who I am talking about, his own father
Yeah.
and his own mighty wrestling with the racism in his family.
Mhm.
And I have to say that, I don't talk about it much in the book, but my own father grew up in a generation that he may have been grappling very seriously with the racism in his own family.
Mhm.
But, it wasn't until he started seeing his own daughters suffer under the weight of patriarchy that he began to deal with the sexism in his own life.
Mhm.
Now, he's a different person than he was in his own 20s and 30s.
Wow.
Um, and these things are always interwoven. But,
Yeah.
um, it just, this is true for anything that's hard to talk about. That is a truth that is tied to a trauma, that is tied to shame, that it always feels like you're going to die when you talk about it.
Yeah.
You never die when you talk about it. And you actually feel better because you're telling the truth. And that's freeing, that's liberating. And the truth is always going to keep coming out in different ways, in different layers, and even in deeper forms. And I do think I've been honest about the fact that it's also taken years of therapy to understand the truth is not going to destroy you, but the truth will heal you.
Mm.
And I can't tell you how many times I have talked about this particular history and many other stories that I have in the book, but this particular history. And I've had people come up to me, white people, come up to me after my sermon and the story of Laura Nelson and look me straight in the eyes and say, "I'm so sorry that that happened in your family." To which I respond, well, yes. And how long have you lived here in
Yeah.
uh, Tulsa, Oklahoma? And they'll say, oh, I'm an eighth generation or I'm a seventh generation. And
Mhm.
you just kind of want to look at them, kind of look at them sideways and think, well, your story too. You
Yeah.
know, this is not Serene Jones's own little personal story.
Right.
This is the story of our country.
Yeah.
This is the story of our country. And until you're ready to stop seeing it as my own little personal trauma and allow it to open doors into your own history and life, there's no way your family escaped this
Mhm.
and that you're not implicated in it as well.